you had kind of a unique setup where you had a crash cymbal on your left side, a ride cymbal where most people would put the ride, but on your right you had a china, which used the way most people use a china for effects, but also you would crash it quite a bit. Was Gary Malaber a an influence? He played on those Steve Miller records.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah. But that's the first time. Actually, no, the first time I was aware of a China cymbal was there was a drummer, fantastic drummer with Fairport Convention, a folk rock band in England, and Dave went to a Chinese shop in London and found a Chinese cymbal, and he used this thing, and I was helping him out with his gigs, and I went off to the same place and got a China cymbal, and then a year or two later, the manufacturers started making them. And yeah, I like them, and I don't use it so much now, but I did like, yeah, and I would crash them. I mean, I learned from Dave Mattox, and how to use them, and he would use them, in various ways. He would ride on it sometimes. He would have it upside down sometimes, and have it hanging in the normal way. Others, all sorts of things.
Was yours a Wuhan cymbal?
My original one, yeah, it was a Wuhan. Yeah.
Authentic and very trashy sounding.
Yeah, very, very. Doesn't last long.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
yeah, I think it fell apart within a couple of years. I was heartbroken because they stopped making them, I think.
Yeah, well, I think you can still buy Wuhan cymbals.
Yeah, they were even at the NAM show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, gongs and everything, which is great. What do you do before a show to get in the zone? Do you have like a warm-up routine or a mental thing or breathing? How do you get in the zone and be ready at 8 o'clock downbeat to go?
I tried all sorts of things, but I found the best thing was just to do everything in the morning. I mean, I always, for decades, I always had a cold shower in the morning, whatever the temperature. And I've always done things like squats and press ups um, before, the day starts.
But by the way, we Americans call those push-ups.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
you do. Yeah,
press-ups.
sorry.
Yeah.
Push-ups, you do. It's very useful having an American translator for an
Yeah.
Englishman. Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Did you do breathing or meditation, any other things to get in the
No,
zone?
I haven't got the patience. I did try Tai Chi for a couple of years, but I prefer just training. And I recently, well, in the last sort of half dozen years, I've started using trainers because I discovered that young sort of university educated trainers know far more than trained physiotherapists do. And because of all the money that's been put into sports, keeping, multi-million dollar sportsmen going, um, there's so much knowledge in that world about the human body, and it's made a difference to me, that's for sure.
What about practice pad rudiments before you play to get your muscles going?
I didn't do that so much. The trouble is, I've got barely any rudiments that I can play in public because I wasn't taught them. I didn't know what rudiments were until after Walking on Sunshine,
Wow.
and then I would meet, you know, tutored drummers, um, and I spent about a month working really hard on a paradiddle. And then I was just mucking around the drum kit like I always did. And I thought, hang on, what am I doing? And I was doing it without having practiced it. I think it's just a natural way that you play with. I mean, I'm not claiming that I'm clever about it. I think it's just a way that when you play with a drum, I think a lot of people, easily and typically play paradiddles naturally. paradiddles and double diddles or whatever they are, you know. Um, but no, I really wish I had been taught. I really do.
And look at what Steve Gadd did with rudiments to turn rudiments into grooves, like 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover. I mean, just fantastic, where drummers were like, wait a minute, what's going on there, you know?
Someone explained to me quite recently that that lick for 50 Ways, only one beat is struck at a time. There are no two beats at the same time. It's
Linear drumming.
Linear, yeah,
Yes.
that's what it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, he's a genius. He's definitely a genius.
Yeah, he's in the top 5, I think.
I think Buddy Rich is, well, he's had all that technique. He's my favorite big band drummer, and that's for sure. But he was capable of anything, really. He arguably has had the greatest technique of any drummer. But after that, there are just so many.
And Louis Bellson got pretty close to that Buddy level too. I'm sure you've seen Buddy many times perform. Did you get to meet him at all?
I saw him twice live. I wish I'd seen him more. And I've met people who've met him, and you know, he could be whatever he wanted to be mood wise. You know, he could be very difficult. He could be very funny. He certainly wasn't modest. Well, you knew how good he was.
That's for sure. And I got to meet him twice. And once was at Disneyland.
Really?
After his gig, he went out front to the audience, was just shaking hands. And I've never, ever seen him do that again. And the other time I met him, he looked like he was having a heart attack on stage. All the bristles fell out of his wire brushes, and he instantly got in this really bad mood. His face turned red, and the whole band got really uptight, like, oh my God, oh my God. And then so afterwards, I was supposed to give him a packet because he was going to be on the front cover of Modern Drummer magazine. And I thought, oh, how do I do this? I didn't even want to meet him because, oh my God, it's Buddy Rich, right? And so I just kind of stumbled up to him when he came off stage, and I handed him the package, and he kind of went, what's this? I went, oh, it's for your Modern Drummer cover shoot. And he went, all right, I'll look at it, and just went on. And I was like, oh my God, that was stressful, you know? You just don't know, right? Is he in a good mood or a bad mood? And I know now I should have waited 15 minutes, let him cool down. I don't want to come off the stage and have some guy handing me things, you know, but I was only in my 20s, so live and learn, right?
Yeah. I talked to somebody who knew him really very well, and said he could be as sweet as anybody, but he knew he was good. I mean, he knew he believed that it was the best, and apparently he was a huge fan of Philly Joe Jones. That was his favorite drummer, I was told by this guy who knew him, but he never told Philly Joe Jones that he was.
That's too bad. Because, yeah, I know I've heard him say he liked Steve Gadd, he liked Danny Seraphim, and he actually said Carl Palmer, too, which I was surprised by.
Well, that was weird because I didn't think of Carl Palmer as anything close. I think there's a story that Carl Palmer met Buddy when he was very young and had been taught, and he showed Buddy what, you know. So I think he just remembered the name. Best Buddy Rich story is Stuart Copeland, whose story is that he was at an event and Buddy Rich was there, and he wanted to meet him, but he was nervous to meet him. And then Kathy, his daughter, was a police fan. Kathy was very young and wanted Stuart's autograph. And so Stuart had a tap on his shoulder, and he turned around and he thought, wow, that's Buddy Rich. And Buddy Rich said, give me your autograph. It's for my daughter.
Wow, that's great.
Which is kind of weird because Stuart, like everybody else, thinks he's a genius. Having Buddy ask you for your autograph as a drummer.
Yeah, that's
a good story.
That's like a dream that most people will never even have, you know? Yeah, exactly. For sure. Yeah.
Throughout your career, did you wear hearing protection and Part two of that question is, how is your hearing?
I didn't until right towards the end of Katrina and the Waves. It just wasn't around, and people didn't talk about it. And my hearing is very bad. And in fact, what I do now is I use the AirPod hearing aid system with my iPhone, which is something which is brilliant. I'm wearing them now, and it's unbelievably obvious that everybody should do it, because my last hearing aid cost me about, well, over $4,000, and they weren't very good, and I lost them. I lost one, and you can't insure hearing aids for loss. You can insure them for, being stolen or damaged, but you can't. No insurer in the UK or Europe will insure them for loss.
How often do you play your drums?
As much as I can. I haven't got a drum kit set up where we are now, but I do have a proper practice kit, which I put together with various pads. And I was rehearsing with Vince yesterday in the rehearsal room. There's some fantastic rehearsal rooms in Lisbon. The Portuguese are very musical, and their sort of authorities make sure that there's a lot of facilities.
Was that the first time that you got together with Vince in like many years?
No, that was the second time. He's a great player, and he really is. Much missed when he was living in the States.
When I was younger, I used to use some massive 2B sticks with nylon tips because I wanted the most volume I could get out of my body. I'm not a big guy. So have you used a certain stick, nylon tip, wood tip, large? What was your preference on drumsticks?
Right. I use these. These are ahead sticks. These are 7As. They're very thin and very light for me. They're slightly longer than normal. And I used to use 5Bs, and I used to break them. And then one day we were touring with Fleetwood Mac, and Mick and I got on quite well. And he said, "I've just started using these head sticks. You must try them." So he lent me a pair, and I loved them. However, the 5Bs of theirs, I always broke the head sticks as well, quite regularly, and it was really expensive. And then I thought, I wonder what Ginger Baker used. And I talked to my drum maker who knew Ginger, and Gary Noonan said he used 7As, which is a thin stick.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I wonder why. Anyway, so I called up the head guys, and they made a 7A. And the guy I was talking to said that he noticed that when he started using him, he wasn't breaking them as much. So I ordered a bunch, and it's incredible. I've used them for 2 years, and I have yet to break a stick.
Wow.
I do not know why, but I mean, these are very, if you know head sticks, they are very expensive compared to normal, but I just don't break them.
Weren't they making sticks out of nylon or some kind of plastic? Is that what those are?
No, the head sticks, they have an aluminium, I think it's aluminium or something like that, a core. It's a sort of hollow core, and then they have a sleeve. This bit here, this black bit here, is a sleeve that goes over the metal core, which is in itself hollow, and they have a separate tip, and you get tape which you wrap around the handle area, which I love because it makes it easier to hang on to, and I don't drop them and I don't break them, and I mean I totally recommend them, but I don't have a classic technique at all, so it may only apply to me. I don't know.
What is that sleeve made of? What material?
The sleeve feels like it's some sort of nylon or plastic. It's obviously they've designed it to sound like wood when you're hitting cymbals and the drums, obviously. So the whole thing, it sounds like you're playing with wooden sticks, except they are totally straight. They're easier to hold on to, and these ones just don't break. I love them because they are really light and they're long, and I've always liked a long stick, and they're very light.
I believe that you guys sold the rights to Walking on Sunshine.
In 2015, I sold the band's music rights,
Ah.
and so I can tell you all about. I won't tell you the amounts, and otherwise your brother will kill me. But it's music rights are the rights which, like publishing and recording, all that sort of thing. What happened when the band stopped functioning as a band? What I did do, because we had a recording studio, what I did do was worked on the company which the band had, and the company owned all those rights, which is the way it had always been structured. And so we were in the very fortunate position that Walking on Sunshine was getting used a lot, and one or two other songs every now and then, but mainly Walking on Sunshine. So we started making different versions of Walking on Sunshine to try and make it more interesting for films and adverts and things. At that time, because we owned all the publishing, we could control the use of the actual hit recording. Because you can, if you need to put a song in a film, there are two rights. There's publishing rights for the writing, and then there's recording rights for the recording. So one can deny the other. And so what I did, and this took about a year, I'm not exaggerating, we devoted hours and hours and hours and hours putting together a version of Walking on Sunshine that was a clone in terms of sound and performance of the Capitol original record. So we then had total control of our music. And I mean, I don't know whether anybody's ever done that before or since, but I mean, it's an unbelievably difficult job because, you whatever technology you have, it's the vocal, the drum track, all the sounds, they're all unique to anything like that. Anyway, we did it well enough so people didn't object when we said, yes, you can use that song, but we want you to use our recording. And so they would say, well, listen to the recording. And then they think, oh, okay, can't tell the difference myself. I mean, you can A/B them and see the difference, but
Would I be able to hear the difference, do you think?
you might not be very conscious of the difference at all if you heard just the clone of it.
Did Katrina come in and re-record the vocal?
No, she didn't need to because we had many vocals of hers anyway, already on tape, so that wasn't necessary. No. We had a recording studio for decades already, for more than 20 years. So we had all those recordings. We had recordings of us live, multi-track recordings. We, always got a hold of the tapes and insisted that we had a copy of the tape. But anyway, so what happens, we had a company that held the rights. We had an income. And what happens with music rights, they look at your last 3 years, they average the gross income, and then they make you an offer. They give you a multiple of that. So if your gross income was $100 a year, then they look at $100, 3 years income, and say, well, we'll give you a multiple of 5 or 6 or something, and that will give you $1,800 or whatever. So that's how it works. It took a lot of negotiation with various companies, but fortunately, everybody wanted our rights because they held Walking on Sunshine.
So you guys got $1,800 for Walking on Sunshine.
So we got $1,800 as a bargain.
Wow. Hey, a couple of years ago, I think Katrina was going to possibly do a tour, and Marcos was saying, "Yeah, we're talking about going out on a tour and doing something." Now, would that have upset you, being really the main drummer that's played with her for all this time?
Well, let me clear that up. My brother reached out to me and told me that Katrina was doing some sort of a little tour with some other 80s artists.
Yeah.
And he was going to be the bass player. And he asked if I would do it. I said, well, what are the details? But the thing is, she needed to know the answer pretty quickly. I really couldn't say yes because I didn't have details, and I didn't really want to necessarily leave the band that I'm in now because we had gigs. So I wasn't able to give an answer. As it turned out, Katrina did do a tour, but the organizer of that tour set it up so that it was a fixed band playing the music for all the artists, and Katrina would come on and sing 3 or 4 songs. Vince sort of described it as cabaret, right? So it didn't end up happening. But Bill, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just curious. I mean, if that would have happened, would Marcos have been on the blacklist?
I would have no problem with that at all. I mean, Katrina's quite at liberty to just do a tour, as by herself. The rest of the band own the name; she doesn't, so she can't use the name Katrina and the Waves, but she can call herself Katrina of Katrina and the Waves.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and let's face it, she probably couldn't afford you for that tour. So
I wouldn't have done that, but it is a shame that the band doesn't get together now, because the legacy act market is huge, and if the band had been together or agreed to get together, then it would be great fun and make money. But that's not to be, for 2 reasons. One, that Kimberly has moved on and he doesn't fancy doing that sort of thing. And fair enough, and the other thing is that Katrina has never really been in touch with anybody. So, that's her own choice. She's gone off and done her own thing.
the way you described it to me in an email was that Kim really doesn't want to, and Kimberly, we're saying Kimberly, it sounds like a girl's name. It's actually a guy. It's Kim, the guitarist, Kimberly Rue. He doesn't really want to do anything without his wife, who plays bass.
And it's the Paul McCartney thing, and that makes sense for him.
Yeah.
I mean, why not?
And you also said he doesn't want any more money.
Well, he doesn't want any more money, and that's a very wise guy. I mean, he's got money. According to today's standards, it's not that much money, but it is enough to live on at the standard they want to live. So why complicate life? And I totally respect that decision. He's a wise guy. I mean, not many people walk away from money.
All right, so you've been touring and recording your whole life. Do you have any gig stories that, like, wow, I can't believe that happened? It's a 1 in a million thing. Any gig stories come to mind that are interesting?
For me, the big things have been, I've toured with, because the band toured with, Fleetwood Mac and the Beach Boys and the Kinks, who are 3 of my all-time favorite bands. So, that's very special.
Yeah.
And I got to meet them and to know them.
When we had an interview with Vinny Appice, he said he and his brother Carmine were backstage before a Buddy Rich concert, and those guys were smoking out, getting high as heck, and then Buddy goes out and performs his normal self, and they're like, how does he do this? And those kind of stories are so special, and I wish I could remember all my gig stories. You must have hundreds. and then you'll go to bed tonight and think, I should have talked about that one, you know?
Can't think of any specific stories. I will in 5 minutes. When
Yeah.
Right.
I can tell you one thing that you told me about your tour with Fleetwood Mac. You would watch Mick play, and you said it was like a hi-hat masterclass, the way he
Oh,
controlled his hi-hat.
totally. He is. I had no appreciation of it until I saw it going on. You know, yeah, absolutely. Every great drummer's got a secret, and I think his is his hi hat. Yeah,
What is it specifically? Is it
I couldn't even describe it to you. He just plays it in a different way from a lot of other people. Boy, he's just getting sounds out of it, and I don't know. He has a. I mean, he told me that when Rumors was big, he got a lot of famous drummers. He has no recognition of his talent. He just thinks he's a bog standard drummer. He doesn't, he's very modest about it. And he said, I have these ridiculously talented drummers, and they'd come backstage and they were being very nice people. And then they'd say, Mick, now, and go your own way. You turn the beat round and bar 47, and then in bar 49, you did this. And Mick said, I'll listen to this explanation of what I've done. I would know nothing or have no understanding of what they were talking about.
right?
And he's just a natural drummer. Your brother told me the other day that one of my favorite performances of Mick's is Werewolves of London. And Vince said, you pointed out to him that he doesn't play about 2 bars or something on the bass drum, which, according to his account of the session, there were about 50 takes, and he and John McVie were not in a very sober state by the end. So
What I heard is that they did about 50 takes that went in, till like 4 a.m. They ended up using take 2 or something.
oh, really?
And-
He didn't say that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that bass drum was missing. It's a couple of bars before the guitar solo happens. I had been hearing this song for, 30 years, and I didn't realize that bass drum was missing until, 5 years ago
Yeah.
or whenever that was. But
Bizarre.
and I actually met Waddy Wachtel, the guitarist on that track.
Really?
And I asked him about that. And he goes, "Oh, he's not aware of it," which is ridiculous.
Just one of those things. Yeah.
Yeah, I also love the mix playing on that song. The other thing that I remember you telling me about being on tour with Fleetwood Mac was that in the song "Don't Stop," which is a shuffle, you asked Mick if he was going to do the fill,
Yeah. That goes into the next bar.
yeah, and he didn't really know what you were talking about.
He had no knowledge of what I was talking about. He had absolutely. He said, "What, Phil?" I said, "Mick, you go." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, you start the fill at the beginning of one bar, and you come out of it in the next bar, and it's in a sort of unconventional place." He said, "Oh, I never noticed that. There's no idea about it." No, that's what he is. He's just a natural drummer.
Not a thinking drummer, just a
Feel.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just feel it. Don't think
he's
about it.
complete feel thing. He's a lovely guy, by the way. He's a completely cool guy. He absolutely loves John McVie. His life's job is to keep John off the booze, and he never succeeds.
I think Mick is sober now, isn't he? I think he's been sober for years.
I think, well, when we toured with him, he was completely clean for the first time, and he had been for several months, and he'd given up overnight. And I've heard that he's occasionally sort of falls off the, for a a few days or whatever. But I mean, he must be in his early 80s now, and he's still playing. So yeah, and he's doing well. When you're as big as him, I mean, he is 6'7" or more. That's a lot of body to look after.
Yeah, I met him in the probably mid 80s at a restaurant in Malibu, and he walked in and he was a regular there, and I just went up and said hi, and he was not in a good place. He was actually miserable, so he wasn't really kind, but he was sort of, oh yeah, thanks, man. But that was about it.
Their career has been an extraordinary career. I mean, his career and the whole band. I mean, it is so many highs and so many lows. Yeah, it's one of the most successful bands ever, and such good music.
Tell us some more details about what you got coming up, the gigs that are coming up for you.
Oh well, at the moment, I have no idea because we're just putting this band together. But the rumor is that there's interest amongst the powers that be that put festivals together in Portugal, because they have a lot of festivals. They like to party, and this weather is perfect, so they have lots of festivals. A lot of them organised by the local councils. Anyway, so there is some interest in that. So I think if we get a good enough band together, good enough in Vince and I's opinion, then I reckon we'll do some of those. But I mean, I nothing. I mean, I think we're going to definitely do the first one, which is going to be a charity dance for dogs, a dog's home. That's a council run down dog's home, and that'll be in April.
Yeah, I'm sure that you guys will put a good band together, and I believe that in your last email you might be calling it the Waves. Kim has given his blessing.
Well, I will call it the Waves, because because Kimberly has agreed, and because I can't be bothered to think of another name, to be honest. Names are very difficult to agree upon.
Yeah, I do have a question that I ask every drummer that we interview. Who do you listen to that would surprise people?
Actually, the Shadows. That would surprise people, because anybody wouldn't know what I'm talking about. And then if they checked it out, it was the British version of the Ventures that, Bill, you would remember anyway, I guess. I mean,
So were they sort of a surf band that ended up backing Cliff Richard?
Yeah, they weren't a surf band. They were just a band. They were literally one of the first rock and roll bands that had ever been put together. And they turned out to be very good. They were backing Cliff Richard, and then they started writing and recording instrumentals inspired by the Ventures. But they weren't a surf band, but they were just a 2-guitar, bass and drum instrumental band. And because of that, they were literally the first 2-guitar, bass and drums well-known band in England. They were a fundamental influence on everybody, the Beatles included.
Yeah, so Cliff Richard is like this, national hero almost in England. In the States,
unknown in America. Yeah,
yeah. I think he had a couple of hits in the early '80s out here. Actually, one was called "It's So Funny." Yeah. Other than that, he's not known in this country.
All right. Well, Alex, thank you so much for doing this. This has been a pleasure to talk to you and get all this wealth of knowledge from your whole career. Thank you so much.
well, it's been a pleasure for me, Bill and Marcus. I mean, I was amazed when you asked if you could talk to me, and I thought, why? But I've enjoyed it very much, and I hope it's useful to you guys. And I had an entertaining time listening to JR. He's quite a character, very strong character. I think.
Yeah,
Big man, strong character.
Yeah, I thought it would be interesting to talk to you because You come from a time when it was possible to have a huge hit single, and if you guys were smart about it, you could basically live off that one record, and that really doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, well, exactly. That doesn't happen anymore. But you take advantage of the chances you get. So we were very lucky, and I'm very grateful.
Okay, well, say hi to Vince, and
I certainly will. Bill, great pleasure to meet you. And Marcus, I'm sure we'll see you again.
Thank you so much, Alex.
Thanks, man.
All right, you have a good one.
Okay.
We'll talk again.
All the best.